Guys, we're back with the Screen Team, and of course, we got Matt back on the show, and we're getting ready to review a very divisive movie. It's a comic book movie. It's called Venom. Now, before we get to the movie, let's just talk about the character for 1 second. Matt, this is one of your all-time favorite comic book characters. Is that correct?
Since I was 5, this has been my favorite character.
He's number one on the list.
That's right.
Why is Venom number one on the list? What is it about him?
Man, I always loved like monsters, and I always loved superheroes, and he was kind of like a combination of the two. Like one of my favorite movie monsters, the Wolfman, the big snarling teeth, the claws, the slime coming out, all that was Venom. But he looked like a bodybuilder. He had, Schwarzenegger was very big when I was a kid too. So it was like if you combine the two elements into one character, that's kind of what it was. And I was a big fan of Spider-Man too, and he was kind of like the evil twin. I also, not that I was into villains when I was a kid, but yeah, totally. But I also loved that he had a gray area. He was an anti-hero as well, and that gives him a lot of depth. He has a twisted sense of morals. Originally, he was made to be like a villain, a true villain, but again, he had a twisted sense of morals. He wouldn't hurt Mary Jane, but he would maybe, like intimidate her to get to Spider-Man, to really stoke their feud, because he viewed Spider-Man as evil. Later on, he became, because of his popularity, an anti-hero and got his own signature run called Lethal Protector, and that's what this movie is based off of.
All right, so I said the movie was divisive, and it's divisive for this reason. The critics tore this movie apart.
They did.
They said it's one of the worst comic book movies we've seen in a long time.
Right.
However, opening weekend of this film broke the box office record for the month of October.
Completely October, and everything in September as well, except for Stephen King's It from last year, which was lightning in a bottle. It's going to be hard to top that anyway. But this movie had a lot of things going against it, and yet it still performed. It exceeded expectations, and it had pretty high expectations.
So the critics hated it. The fans loved it. They really liked it, or at least they went to see it. What did Matt Whitworth think?
I always said, and again, I'm a big fanboy, not that you can tell, but I said as long as they got the character right, I was going to be happy with this movie.
Did they do that?
Yeah. Totally. This is a movie, it doesn't have Spider-Man. So Venom's original origin story is that his life gets ruined. Eddie Brock, the man that is Venom, gets his life inadvertently ruined by Spider-Man. The symbiote, which is a living organism that wants to bond with Spider-Man, he thinks is this kind of like Tony Stark's suit. It's a smart, advanced suit that he got while he was on another planet in a long story arc. And found out that it's actually alive and it's trying to bond with him, and he rejected it. So they found their way to each other, and their twisted anger towards Spider-Man drove them both insane. And again, neither one of them were truly evil. They just had been corrupted by insanity and put all the blame on Spider-Man. And so that's why they didn't go out, like killing random people like a lot of the other characters that Spider-Man had. This was a character that maybe had selfish motives, but actually had a pretty good heart. It just was insane.
So Tom Hardy, how did he do? First as Eddie Brock and then as Venom.
Eddie Brock, he was good. I think it was a bit more of a mixed bag, but once he became Venom, and as the voice of the symbiote Venom, which in this movie, the symbiotes are already named. They have the names Venom and Riot, which is the bad guy, the bad symbiote. But in the comic book, they choose that name because their hatred for Spider-Man, and because Eddie Brock, after he lost his job as a reporter, had to go to tabloids, and so he felt like he was spewing venom, mindless drivel, and so that was kind of how they chose the name. In this one, they already have that name. I think he did great as Venom, and really the best part of the movie, even better than the action sequences, it's the interplay between the symbiote and between Eddie Brock. It's very entertaining. There's a lot of funny moments. There's some heartfelt moments to it, but it's always entertaining. The pacing of this movie really hides any deficiencies that I think it really has. It doesn't dwell too long on them, at least, and I think it really focuses on the strengths, which, again, the humor, which sometimes lands, sometimes doesn't, but the action, which I think always hits the mark.
So what are the weaknesses of this film?
The script is the biggest weakness.
That's what I've heard from many people.
Yep.
It's
by far, and it's not even a terrible script. Considering this came from Sony, I was expecting far worse. If anyone knows me, I hate Sony. Yeah. I really hated that they had their clutch still on this franchise, because this is my favorite character, and I really wanted it to get the MCU treatment, because I think it would have been much better received by critics, and I think still would have had the sheen of being part of the MCU, and would have still done great at the box office, maybe even better. I don't know. But it's I don't know. I still didn't think it was a terrible script, but it wasn't the best. The dialogue suffers at times. It felt like it was really stuck in a first draft for the script.
Sure.
It felt like this is just what they put in at the time, and it's not a bad story. They could say it's cliche all they want to, but most comic book movies are kind of cliche. It's really the journey more than it is the destination. And I think they had the right cast. Michelle Williams is fantastic. Jenny Slate is one of my favorite comedic actresses. She's really good as a straight person in this movie. She's not a comedic character at all. In fact, Tom Hardy is actually the one that's funny in most of the scenes that they interact together. But she did a really good job. Riz Ahmed was really good as Riot and as Carlton Drake. Kind of like if Elon Musk were a James Bond villain, that's kind of how his character was in this movie. He's a super duper rich man, made his fortune in science, and wants to advance the human race, but has ulterior and selfish motives, obviously.
What about Woody Harrelson? I heard he plays a secret role.
Well, I can't get into that. Just stay after the credits. We'll say that there's 2 after credits scenes. The first one pertains to the movie and was one of the biggest highlights for the movie. Probably my favorite scene in the movie. And then the second one was actually, I think, about a 5-minute clip from the new movie Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which was very entertaining. It looks like it's going to be a very good film. It's possible that it could be the best Spider-Man film to date.
It looks cool. The animation of that film looks cool.
It does. I love that it's very comic book based.
Yeah.
But again, I'm sorry to rabbit hole so much with the script. It's just that you don't get as much time to develop the characters, so they don't have as much chemistry with one another. It's kind of a domino effect with a stronger script, and I think that they'll have that for the second film.
Sure.
As long as they get the right people by it. And they did as well as they could with this one, I think, in many respects, because they don't have Spider-Man to lean on. This is a Venom-centric film, and it would be hard to do that if Spider-Man were in it. So it's kind of a, darned if you do, darned if you don't kind of thing. I think that it's in some ways beneficial. In some ways, it hurts the film. Kind of like a lot of people felt like this should have been an R-rated film, and I did.
Yeah.
I think the sequel, depending on who they get for the the antagonist in this next one, which again I can't get into, it's got to be R if they go with the direction that they're hinting at.
So it sounds like, after our opening weekend, it sounds like we might see a sequel to this, don't you think?
It's already like you said, it broke box office records. It brought in $80 million domestically, which is the biggest for October domestically ever. It's $202 million worldwide. That's including the American. So just huge records for it. And again, It didn't have the MCU tag for it. But one of the reasons they alleged that they kept it as PG-13 was so that it could possibly be part of the MCU, and so that they could at least have Tom Holland's Spider-Man involved in the movie. Yeah. Hopefully we see that come to fruition, but there's not a guarantee with it. It's Sony. They have a habit of screwing the pooch.
So down the line, is this a movie that you want to own or watch again?
Yeah, definitely. This was, I agree with Cinema Score. It's a B+ for entertainment value. It's a very entertaining movie. It's not a work of art. This is not Winter Soldier. This is not the Dark Knight trilogy. The first 2 Superman movies or Spider-Man 2.
Right.
This is, some fan had said that it was like the best superhero movie of 1998. And it even has a rap song themed at the end, by Eminem. So it's kind of funny. It's a throwback in many ways. Kind of like, Ninja Turtles, you had TRULNT power, or Go Ninja Go Ninja Go.
Yeah.
So it's kind of fun, like how in many ways it's a throwback to that. But it's, like I said, it's a really good time. It's a lot of fun, and the action really holds up well, even if the plot isn't.
So who's better, Topher Grace or Tom Hardy?
God, give me a second. I don't know, man. Think about that. Topher Grace, I think, actually would have made a decent Carnage.
Yeah.
I don't know why they pegged him for, Venom, but Tom Hardy, he's a guy that has the acting range to play a character that has a lot of depth.
Yeah.
And he's also very imposing. He's always in great physical shape. He has a lot of intensity. He's a believable tough guy. And Topher Grace, unless he has a complete transformative role, I don't see him ever being that.
Sure.
It's hard to see him as anything but, Eric Foreman. Not to be mean or anything. But,
it's true, though.
Yeah,
it's
and
true.
I know that was probably a role he was hoping would break free from that, but,
Didn't happen.
No.
Didn't happen. All right, the movie's called Venom. It's doing very well in the box office, and people are loving it. Critics aren't, so do that with what you will. All right, Matt, appreciate you being on the show, brother.
Anytime, my man.
All right, he's Matt. He loves Venom. You go see it. We got more reviews coming your way here on the Screen Team.